the Nazis used all kinds of different propaganda and different propaganda techniques to identify, isolate, and defame various groups that they were persecuting. And of course, some of the most heinous examples of that is the propaganda that was directed at Jews. And this comes in a variety of forms. This is often to show that Jews are greedy, Jews are engaged in criminal activities, Jews don't fit into, they're not part of German societies. And they devoted a lot of attention to this, whether that's in school books. You even had, at the time, you had private groups, private companies marketing anti-Semitic things that were aimed to fit in with the Nazi government's goals. There was a game, for instance, that was done by a private company called Juden raus, which is Jews out, it translates as. And the goal of that game was it's a board game, and each of the players is given a token, and the goal was to capture as many Jews as possible. And each of the positions on the board, there are circles on that represent German Jewish businesses. And so it's a dice game. They use these stereotypical, negative stereotypes of Jews on these cone things, and you put them on your figurine. If you capture 6, you win the game. And at the bottom, it says off to Palestine. And it shows Jews being kind of sent to Palestine. Because the goal of Nazi policy in those early years, up until the fall of 1941 in Germany, was to force Jews to leave, to say they have no place here, they belong somewhere else, they're racially alien, they should go somewhere else. They didn't care where they went, as long as they left. And so that they used all kinds of ways in which, whether that's exhibitions like the Ewige Jude, the Eternal Jew, which also they subsequently made into a film. Now, there were several films that were explicitly anti-Semitic. Der Ewige Jude was a kind of a pseudo-documentary that aimed to defame Jews.
Ruhe und so weiter. Sie sind hinterlistig, feige und grausam und treten meist in großen...
And then you had the kind of a very different type of film, a costume drama called Zeus. And Zeus was the film was based on a real character from the 18th century who was a court Jew, and it was a kind of a costume drama that featured some of Germany's greatest actors, the most popular director. And it was to show Jews engaged in kind of crooked financial dealings, all to the benefit of Jewish conspiracy.
Ich bin nichts gewesen als ein Dreierdiener.
And of course, in the war years, this escalated so that the Jews became an existential threat to the German population and to Western civilization. And this becomes a kind of a justification for deportations and for some for mass murder. Now, the propaganda doesn't say we're going to kill the Jews. But what it does is that they say, well, Jews, have to leave. And so they say, well, they're being evacuated. And it's a euphemism that they're being deported. They don't say where they're being deported. Goebbels says, don't take matters into your own hands. Let the state protect you. You don't have to do anything. Just let it happen. They were very skillful in portraying, for instance, Roma and Sinti, what were commonly referred to as gypsies, as kind of being a plague of socially undesirable, racially alien people living in their midst that they identify as being criminal. And so it becomes those kind of justifications with people with mental and physical disabilities. They use a kind of a different strategy there, which is to show a kind of a cost-benefit analysis, to say, well, look at the burden that these people are on the German state, that they're being kept in palaces, in these asylums, while you were living in slums in German democracy, that's not fair, that they're a burden, they're useless eaters, that they don't provide anything productive for the German economy, and that money could be used for better things. And all this is kind of leading up to, well, maybe it'd be better if they weren't around. And of course, they use these kind of films and propaganda material against people with congenital disabilities or with mental disabilities to justify, for instance, mass sterilization, and then later euthanasia.